What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel, and if you couldn't already tell from the thumbnail, I am going to be installing the Runnin4Tacos high clearance catback exhaust system. Something I've been really wanting to do mainly for high clearance, because I found that that is the main point of contention for the third gen Tacoma before you crunch into the bumper. And I haven't gotten to the point where I've needed to replace the whole rear bumper, but I have hit the exhaust, a bunch of times so far. So I finally pulled the trigger, especially after our trip to Kauai when we had the TRD Pro 4Runner, which was running the stock TRD Pro exhaust. And I'd never had an exhaust on a truck before. I've had this for 5 years, and it never really occurred to me, I'm not going anywhere fast, but that exhaust system sounded really nice. And I knew that if I was going to get one, it was going to be the R4T high clearance catback exhaust. Funnily enough, this isn't the first time I've also been in this specific scenario. So as everyone knows, the V6 is no longer. The Toyota Tacoma is now only a 4-cylinder turbo or 4-cylinder turbo iForce Max, whatever it is. It hasn't come out yet. But at any rate, this is very reminiscent of when I had, for those of you who are familiar with some older tuner cars, I had a 2004 Mark IV R32 Volkswagen, which had a narrow angle VR6 engine, and loved the sound of that exhaust. And then due to emissions, similar to what the Tacoma is going through right now, they got rid of the V6. So I'm here in a vehicle again where they no longer offer a V6. And so I know that, you know, historically these trucks don't necessarily sound the best, but I thought that now that, you know, the V6 is kind of an outgoing, extinct, and hopefully, you know, at some point there, you know, everyone's gonna really miss this engine because of how notoriously reliable they've been. So hopefully this exhaust, in addition to the main reason why I wanted to get it being for high clearance, hopefully it definitely adds a little bit of oomph and brings out some of that V6 gurgle, as I've been calling it today. But it should be a pretty quick install. Should be just two 14mm bolts. I'm gonna get in there with some WD-40, and then the hardest part is just gonna be with just by myself getting a 7-foot long catback exhaust out of the back. Anyway, that was by far the longest intro ramble I've ever done before. So with that being said, let's get on into the install. We're now under the truck here. You can kind of see the orientation. This is the front. I'm right behind the back tire here, and this is what we're going to work on. So the first thing I'm going to do is get some WD-40. Sorry about that. So many. We live next to an airport. At any rate, I'm going to throw some WD-40 on these. I barely have enough. Hopefully it's enough to kind of get things coming out of there. I don't know how I'm gonna do this. I think I'm eyeballing that pretty good. I'm gonna do it on both sides just so I don't strip them, because you are gonna be reusing these factory bolts. And then once I do that, I'm gonna work my way around these rubber washer gasket or hangers, and I'll explain that to you all once we get to that. But I'm gonna let that sit for another few minutes. Tap it off, and then yeah, see where we get. All right, so I have been told that it's really ideal to have an impact gun for this, but I'm gonna try my very best to see how well I can do just with, those are on there really tight. I mean, they've been on there since I got the truck, and this is a 5-year-old truck, so let's see what we can do. Oh, gonna have to get something else here. All right, so I got like a little bar here. Let's see if I can get a little bit more. How is it, righty lefty? All right, so I kind of broke this one loose. I'm gonna kind of go between this bar and what I would usually use. And you can see it starts to separate there on this side, which is good news. All right, I got this side broken loose, and now I'm just gonna do the same over here. Try not to give it too much juice. And I know they say you do need a impact gun, but I think just take your time. Another plane. Let that pass. But yeah, you should be fine just doing it by hand. All right, so got these 2 bolts out. Where's the camera? Right there. We're gonna want to reuse these. And there is a gasket in here. I just did go and purchase a new one, but I'm gonna inspect this one. You know, they recommend you do this at a new gasket every time you mess with a piece of exhaust, but from my experience, the truth of the matter is, as long as it's not cracked and it's not leaking or showing previous signs of leakage, I'm not feeling too concerned about using the same one, because I go through either AutoZone or Toyota dealership. It's a gasket, it's not cheap. So now we're gonna move on to these exhaust hangers and see how we fare. So this is the first of, I think, 5 if you're taking off a stock exhaust. So I'm just gonna, again, get it some WD-40 on there. Don't want to drip too much. And then I'm gonna do the exact same thing to all the others as well. I think putting WD-40 on, let's see, where is it? The outside, it's like where you're gonna be pushing it through, is probably better than the inside. If you can get it on both, great. But for me, I'm just gonna see how that fares. And if it holds up, I will recommend you guys do it that way. All right, so I got this first grommet off. I'm already seeing that this is gonna be quite interesting with one person, because the exhaust runs all the way to the back there. And I'm one person, so we'll have to see once this drops what exactly I end up doing. All right, so got my WD-40. I'm going to spray the 2 hangers. You guys can't see them, but I figured, oops, I figured you all will be able to see it better once I kind of get them off. But again, the same process is followed, the same way I did the front one, but I think I have to slide it back this way. Again, I'm playing this literally play by play. I know the cap back is a lot smaller, so it should be a little easier to put in. But yeah, it's a good time to look for any other damage that you might have under the vehicle though. But everything looks pretty good. Used, abused, but well taken care of. All right, so this next clip, I'm gonna be trying to slide this thing backwards off these hangers. And if this exhaust crushes me, then it will be documented. Had a good life, you guys. Had a good life. So, as you can tell, maybe not, the exhaust kind of fell here. So I think I was kind of preparing for this to happen. And so I'm kind of, I was already kind of holding it up with my knees. I got one of these loose. I'm gonna try to go for the other one here. But I'm gonna get out of the way because I don't want this thing falling on me. What is up, you guys? So basically, the exhaust is in my lap. Probably the safest way to do it so it doesn't fall on your face, but I'm holding it up with my knees. Got one more bushing here to do. And then what I'm gonna do is go to the back and undo that one. I think that should release everything. And I think that should be 90% of the work because the new cap back is gonna go in pretty easily. And yeah, the 2 bolts, easy work. Getting everything else to come off with these rubber gaskets is the biggest pain. Oh, and your neck will get a workout. All right, now that I'm not struggling on the floor, the last hanger is right here, and should be fairly self-explanatory, but what's gonna happen is the whole system's gonna drop then, and then I'm gonna have to pull it out, so we'll have to see how hard that is once we get to there. Okay, all right. As you all saw, the easiest part of taking the stock exhaust off was by far those bolts. I think just be a little gentle on when you're breaking them loose. You don't want to strip anything. But gosh, with one person, I would highly recommend 2 people. I think most videos on the internet will tell you the same, but we all know that we end up doing it by ourselves. So I finally got it off. Come on, I gotta do a straight pipe, no exhaust clip. So here it is. All right, now that that's all done, here we have what's going in to replace the factory exhaust. Runnin4Tacos makes these in-house in their factory in Colorado. I carried this out here with like one hand. It weighs nothing in comparison to what I just pulled out of the truck, but all the welds are, you know, they're good. It's not art, but it's all stainless steel. And this is going to dump right before the rear axle. So we're gonna get, there's gonna be no clearance issues behind the axle. So no more crushed exhaust tips. It should be fairly straightforward because I'll just be able to man this one person easily. Slide these 2 into the 2 hangers in the middle, this one in the back, and then we'll use the bolts that we removed with the stock one to put this back on, and then we'll be all set. And we'll get some clips for you and maybe go do some in-car stuff. So before we put this on, my wife just called me from inside the house. I think there was either a Mustang GT or like a sports bike that started, and she called me and said, if that's your exhaust, take it off right now. Luckily it wasn't. I don't even think she heard the straight pipe, you know, after the white pipe dump. So hoping this gets the seal of approval from her as well. So let's get this thing on. All right, so putting the exhaust back in was just, like I said, it took no time at all. I just fed it through that way, through the little grommets, and these hangers don't have little plugs on them, so it was a lot easier to get on there. Let's see if I can reach my tools here. And yeah, now we just gotta, you know, one at a time, get this gasket, these bolts back on. I'm going to do it like one side at a time a little bit, just so it's even. But yeah, then we should be pretty good to go. Then we can go do a test drive. All right, here we are. First impressions of the R4T high clearance exhaust. I mean, the first thing I notice is it's exactly that deepness I was hoping for that I had with the 4Runner in Hawaii. Obviously from a aesthetic standpoint, there's no longer a huge exhaust hanging out the back. But what I'm most curious about is just how it sounds. Is there any droning? And that's going to ultimately be, you know, whether or not this is going to be something that I keep on here full time, because like I said, I never felt the need for an exhaust on a truck. But this seemed like a pretty good viable option. I mean, already I haven't even left, you know, our housing community, and it's deep, but not like, I know it's outside, if that makes sense. So I get on it, just kind of driving normal here. Yeah, there's a tiny bit of drone, like, oh, and there that one's downshift, it's gone. See, that's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. I didn't want something that was whirring on the freeway or anything like that. It does grumble a little bit down in the low RPMs as soon as you pass like 2,500, 3,500 RPMs. It's mellow. And I drive pretty slow to begin with, as some of you may know. All right, so I'm just on some surface roads here. I'm gonna roll the windows down, see if that makes any difference to how it sounds on camera. I know exhaust videos, like, it's hard to even make a good video because you need like a proper mic setup, and all of the exhaust videos sound kind of the same. If not, you're just taking what I say at face value. So I'm trying to be as constructive here as possible. So I'm off the gas, coasting to the red light, and it's dead silent. It sounds like the stock exhaust. Obviously there's no input, but if I give it a little bit, yeah, that sounds really good. The true test is gonna be the wife test. So we'll have to see when I get back. Maybe I'll take her and Bucky on a ride here in a few minutes. All right, so I'm now turning on to the freeway. I'm gonna do one little exit pull here. The window's open. Doesn't scream, which is nice. I'm gonna roll the windows up here. adding this to a stock truck, you'll probably be able to tell a huge difference between, but with all the wind noise and the 34s, the rack, all that, it also just kind of blends with all the other sounds that I've become very used to over the last 5 years or so. So it's not too bad, but yeah, you throw your foot into it and it, I wouldn't say it screams. It kind of yells. I got some tools rattling around in here, so hopefully that's not too distracting. So I just got off and now I'm going to get on the freeway again with the windows closed. So I'm gonna give it, you know, I don't fly onto the freeway. I usually, shifts for me usually, yeah, 3,500, 4,000 RPMs. And I consider myself a fairly like conservative driver when it comes to like, I don't go 80. I'm just get on the freeway. I find me in the slow lane. So give it a little bit here. So it is, you know, it's still loud while I'm kind of giving it. Scan gauge or ultra gauge says I'm at about 71% throttle here. Once I get up to speed and I coast here, I want to see what it'll kind of sound like. Yeah, I mean, I just have, you know, there's no radio on or anything. We'll have to see. Time will tell. But I mean, I like it. We'll have to see if Jordan likes it. It kind of brings a little bit more out of the driving experience when you're driving kind of like an overland rig. But yeah, I like it. I'm gonna kind of continue cruising around here for a little bit and kind of give you guys my final thoughts, and maybe if I have some time here I can throw some drive-by clips in here for you as well, so stick around. Alright, you guys, I kind of was able to check out those clips before I kind of edit this video, obviously. But yeah, I'm actually surprised at how quiet it is from the outside. And I think that's perfect. If you want an exhaust that is just high clearance, gets out of the way, adds a little bit of gurgle, you know, on the inside, it doesn't drone, but you definitely feel like it's more of a truck now. And obviously, like I said at the very beginning, you got the V6. If you got the V6 and you want to remind people that, hey, this truck existed for over a decade probably or more, with this tried and true V6, this is a great mod. I think I'm happy with the outcome. Let's give a little bit of a turn here onto the main road back home. Yeah, I mean, it's deep, it's not overly loud, but if you want to wake it up a little bit, yeah, it goes. And I don't know if it's just a placebo effect, but I definitely feel like I can feel the weight reduction. I'm also at half a tank of gas right now, and so sometimes having less fuel in the tank can give that effect as well. But at any rate, let me get back home and I'll give you guys my closing thoughts on this. There we have it, you guys. So that was the install and kind of review of the R4T high clearance catback exhaust. As I mentioned at the very beginning, a huge part of this was getting high clearance, so that's kind of priority number one. I think if you want to do something like this, you could also hack off your stock one, but I kind of opted to go with this because, as I mentioned, I drove a 4Runner in Hawaii and it sounded good. Thought, hey, I know it's not the exact same motor, but a little bit of a nice exhaust tone could go a long way. So overall driving impressions, it's definitely louder. You can hear it. At very low speeds, it's like a nice rumble, which sounds amazing. Even at kind of surface street driving, it sounds really good. It does, as I mentioned, yell a little bit at you when you kind of get on the freeway, but once you're at cruising speeds, there's really no drone, but you do hear it. So I'm just gonna have to get used to hearing that. I didn't have the radio on, so that's a huge part of it as well. But I think from a automotive enthusiast standpoint, this is great bang for the buck. There's functionality, adds, marginal performance, I'm sure, and weight reduction, which is something when we were building a truck this heavy that you're kind of always thinking about. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. If you're new to the channel, please consider getting subscribed. Check out some of the other playlists we got down below. Like the video, give me a comment. Let me know what you think in the comments. I said that twice, I think. But yeah, and until next time, enjoy the ride.